Okay, this video is about how much of a cash cow Australian real estate is to Australian government. I'm going to read you this article, which was written just under 2 years ago, so nearly 2 years ago. And then we're going to run a report that was aired 2 nights ago. And we'll see why this still hasn't been addressed. What am I talking about? Here it is. So the article was again on July 13th, 2017. So again, that's a month short of 2 years. It says Australia a place of choice for money laundering due to lack of regulation. This is ANZ Bank report. ANZ Bank says a lack of political will has seen successive Australian governments fail to extend money laundering law to cover lawyers, real estate agents and accountants. Australia's hot property market is an attractive haven for criminals, with estimates that billions of dollars of dirty money is being laundered through residential property. Australia's anti-money laundering law does not cover real estate agents, lawyers and accountants, despite promises when the law was enacted in 2006 that the legislation would be widened. ANZ's head of crime, financial crime, Guy Boyd, is scathing of the failure of subsequent governments to extend the legislation. So Australia's anti-money laundering law does not cover real estate agents, once again, lawyers and accountants, despite promises when the law was enacted in 2006 that the legislation would be widened. So that means that exactly what it says. You think, all right, but what else does have to be reported? Well, if you are in any other industry except real estate, you have to report this. So what are we talking about? Well, if there was a large amount of money coming into a bond or a stock market, they would have to look into this and report it to Australia Federal Police or the other government bodies, regulators, to say, hey, we think that this money is coming from as proceeds of crime. But somehow that doesn't have to be done in real estate. How conveniently. And we know that, as far as the share market, you can buy $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 worth of shares, which is not a lot of money in the whole scheme of things. Or you can go and park lots of money into a harbour facing Sydney Harbour property that could be $2, $3, $5, $10, $15, $30 million a pop. So that's a lot of money you can park very quickly and easily without being asked a single thing. Now this is or has been aired 2 days ago, 2 nights ago. So it was around about 9th of June 2019. Almost 2 years later, they're starting to talk about it. I wonder why.
Australia accused of lax money laundering laws as the terror finance watchdog knocks on Afterpay's door. Australia has got a $9 billion a year drug problem. Organised crime gangs have a flood of money to launder and real estate is a favoured vehicle. Despite the size of the problem, Australia is under fire for lax laws, which fail to force lawyers, real estate agents and accountants to inform authorities about suspicious transactions. It comes as watchdog AUSTRAC targets Afterpay for possible breaches of the law. Sue Lannon reports.
Now that's a bit rich, actually, to be honest, that Afterpay, which is Australian Stock Exchange listed company, is now being questioned where the money is coming from. When the government knew that the money's been coming over mostly from China for at least a decade, and they didn't do anything about it. All of a sudden now the money comes through, maybe not cash and bags of cash, but it comes through the actual a financial provider, and now they're questioning it. How can they even shift the blame so easily, so quickly with a straight face, and that nobody is seeing it? But Afterpay, what are they going to do? They're not going to fight the government. They have to provide all the information requested and required and move on with it, hopefully with a small fine or nothing else. But the government can walk away and not pay any fine, not be accountable for all of these years and the money that's flown into the real estate industry and the real estate in Australia, where you and me had to compete with this dirty money that was ill-gotten and have to pay 20, 30, 50% more for properties that they would have otherwise being sold we have to pay for all of that with the money that we earned in this country, pay the tax on it, and then paying stamp duty and all the other expenses to just be able to acquire that property, and in most cases for first home buyers to be able to live somewhere.
It's the knock on the door any company dreads. Afterpay is being probed by financial crimes watchdog Austrac over compliance with money laundering laws. The fintech share price fell nearly 2% yesterday on the news, but the bigger problem is the laws themselves. Australia's housing market is worth nearly $7 trillion, and lax laws have seen it become a lucrative target for money launderers.
There's a number of developed countries, United Kingdom, United States, Australia, New Zealand, a number of developed countries where if you've got money and you want to preserve it, whether it's ill-gotten or not ill-gotten, you're going to want to put it into real estate.
There's an estimated $9 billion spent on illicit drugs every year in Australia, and that money has to go somewhere. One of the problems is that real estate agents, accountants and lawyers don't have to report suspicious activity, unlike in other countries, including New Zealand. And a promise to extend Australian law to cover these professions has been stalled for a decade.
So that is where property becomes so attractive. You know, it's got capital growth, it's got an income stream, it's secure.
So if you were wondering why the property has gone up so much, the real estate in Australia, thinking that, oh, well, it always goes up because of the immigration and all the other excuses and reasons building industry and spruikers give you, well, look no further. It's very hard to compete with the dirty money, and we're talking billions and billions of dollars, flooding any asset class, and you have to compete with it, whether you go to the auction or for sale, and you're thinking, what's going on? Who are these people? Why are they able to pay so much? Well, some of us have known that for a while. I hope to wake up more people and show them why, and the number one reason.
Austrac estimates that around $1 billion in suspicious money from China alone was invested in Australian real estate in 2015-16. Since then, Chinese authorities have cracked down on dirty money fleeing the country, and they've even employed former police detectives here as part of Project Dragon.
Everyone's trying to work together, but really without the lawyers who, you know, facilitate transactions and do conveyancing, without the real estate agents that see the clients, and without the accountants who structure these arrangements, there's a huge amount of intelligence that is not getting fed through.
The real estate industry says they will work with government to support amendments to the law, but lawyers are totally opposed.
The extension of this suspicious transaction reporting to lawyers is incompatible and will erode that fundamental trust of that client-lawyer relationship.
Financial crime expert Neil Jeans worked with authorities in New Zealand to help extend money laundering laws to professionals like solicitors. He says the laws work well.
My day job requires me to ask a lot of questions, and one of those questions, one of the main questions we ask is why. But it has to be an educated why question. So let's read this paragraph once again. Australia's anti-money laundering law does not cover real estate agents, lawyers and accountants, despite promises when the law was enacted in 2006 that the legislation would be widened. So the law was passed in, the legislation was passed in, and it was pretty much asking every other industry to declare illegal activity except real estate. But real estate being the biggest acceptor of this, say, dirty money potentially, and biggest, size-wise, you can invest the biggest amount in real estate, especially in one pop by buying a multi-million-dollar Harbourview property. So why was that not done, and why is it being asked again? And right now, and it looks like they might do something about it. Now, it's a stretch to say that maybe it is the whole crackdown on China/Chinese citizens / Chinese money coming out of China because of the Trump's tariffs and let's call them sanctions to China. This is a stretch. Again, I don't know anything about it, but if you said, why now? It's been more than 10 years, they've done nothing about it, and now they're doing something about it. And I mean, the government has profited from this through all of the money coming in from China, whether it's dirty or not. These people were paying all the fees and stamp duties. So you know, it's something that you wouldn't ever want to stop. But all of a sudden, they're looking into stopping this now. But now, when the Trump has started doing all this stuff and trade negotiations and tariffs against China, that's my guess, but it's kind of irrelevant. The question is, why haven't they done anything for 10 years or longer?
He says the laws work well.
Working across the breadth of New Zealand, from Auckland down to Invercargill and all over, working with large, medium and small law firms, as well as real estate agents, as well as accountants, the impost is not that great.
Australia stands condemned for its inaction by the international watchdog, which will be back in Australia later this year for another check of anti-money laundering laws. Labor promised to amend the laws if it won power, and now the pressure is on the federal government to act.
Most of those industry bodies now agree that they recognise they need to do their bit in helping fight money laundering and the proceeds of crime. I think the question really is now when and how we implement that in Australia, not if.
Until then, it's billions in dirty money making a clean sweep for the launderers. Australia's housing market is worth nearly $7 trillion, and lax laws have seen it become a lucrative target for money launderers.